Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NBA center Ryan Hollins.
Couple pump fakes, leans in, shot blocked by Ryan Hollins. Hollins sent that into the third row.
6 rebounds and 8 assists.
Hollins climbs the stairs.
Down the floor. Ryan Hollins! He is the high jumper!
That's what I want to see. Give me some gunpowder and throw the hammer down.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Ric Bucher.
Ric Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Hollins, subsidiary Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. I'm Ric Bucher. You can see me on FS1. You can read me on Bleacher Report. And you can follow me on Twitter at Ric Bucher. You can also see me and follow me on Instagram at Ric_Bucher. He is Ryan Hollins, NBA vet. You can hear and see him arguing with pretty much everyone at ESPN. And you can follow him on Twitter at the Ryan Hollins and on Instagram at Ryan Hollins. Okay, so before we get, and we have a lot to get to, and apologies to those who are waiting for my ode on Oracle Arena. I promise it will be in a podcast coming to you soon. It just won't be tomorrow because having Ryan, it just didn't make sense to do that now. It made sense to do it while he's powering up his computer. That's the sound that you heard. But no, we have the draft tomorrow and free agency looming, and we have Ryan getting into it with Shaquille O'Neal on ESPN over best player. So I just thought, Ryan, we can't pass up doing a session. So here we are. So in reflection, since you got a lot of buzz from going up against Shaq and Max, and essentially what you shocked them with is saying that LeBron James is the best player of all time. I think that's what you said. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is that correct?
Oh, we said a lot of things.
But that was one of the things you said.
Yeah, we said a lot of things. You know, it's funny, Rick. You know, sometimes you kind of just hit TV or radio magic and you get some gold. Mm-hmm. And you got to sit back and appreciate Shaq for his entertainment value. Mm-hmm. And I went back and watched it, and in 2 minutes, we hit so many hot buttons, it was unrealistic. So we go from the Lakers Mount Rushmore to LeBron James to Kobe Bryant to Michael Jordan to the Bulls and to the Warriors in 2 minutes.
Wow. Greatest hits in 2 minutes.
So
Casey Kasem couldn't do that. That's impressive.
If you talk about hitting a hot button,
yeah.
Oh, that was it. That was it.
So upon further reflection, is there any, do you have any, I don't want to say remorse, because I know that you don't just say things off the top of your head or say them for effect. Have you had any reflection or second thoughts about your pick of LeBron James?
What? Are you kidding me?
I guess that the answer is no. Okay. All right. Moving on, because I'm not going to retread that ground. We are on the eve of the draft. You and I have talked about this a little bit. Your experience wasn't a great one, the draft night. Are you still haunted? I think you and I have talked about this. I think you said yes. You are haunted by what draft night, every time draft night comes around. Has anything changed?
I wouldn't say I'm haunted. I mean, I've come to a common place. Well, you know, your first years in the league, you're very competitive, and I mean, even beyond the league, I think in college, from high school on, you're always sizing up the next. I almost said dog, but almost like a dog. It's like an alpha mentality. Like, who's getting drafted? Who's the next big man? Whose lunch am I eating? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because the idea is that if a rookie's better than you, what's your place in the league? Where's your standing? You kind of don't belong. So as a rookie, you're trying to make your name, and the further you go, you're trying to make your name off the next rookies and make sure that they don't trump you. So, you know, you watch the draft just kind of with envy. You're just sizing these guys up. And it wasn't a while until I could just kind of, you know, just appreciate it, you know, kind of move past it. And then, you know, as a player, you see guys get hyped up and it's like, he's not that good. And you see them get just a lot of coverage. And as a player, it's like, dude, he had averaged 5 points a game. We're like, well, okay, we'll see that if he does it in the pros. And you really, it's just so competitive, bro. You do not enjoy it.
So as a vet, once you're in the league, you're watching the draft and you're sizing up guys. And have you watched them in college, or are you sizing them up by, how are you sizing them up?
Well, the longer I was in the league, I didn't watch as much college. I mean, by year like, 8 or 9, I didn't even know who the college players were. I didn't know who's that guy. Mm-hmm. But the earlier in, you're still watching, you're still in tune with who's good, who's not. But the further you are away from it, you have no idea who's what, other than probably the top 5 picks.
Can you watch one of the highlight clips from draft night and assess either that guy ain't all that? Like this is hype, or how much do you need to see to really be able to gauge whether too much is being made of a guy because of what he did at the collegiate level, or just maybe you see a clip and you get a sense immediately of his athleticism or his physicality or a certain skill that he may have. Can you make that kind of a snap judgment?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The clips that would drive me bananas or drive me nuts. And you got to understand, when I was drafted, the European players weren't what you thought they were. They're like invading our land. They weren't as good. The college players were scrutinized, and it was a big deal. And a lot of these guys would come over, and they just couldn't play. Mm-hmm. And they'd be drafted really high, and they couldn't play. They didn't want to be there. They weren't motivated. The NBA just didn't mean the same. It was a dream. It is a dream for, I would say, 90% of NBA players. And overseas, it's kind of like we play basketball. It's a skill. It's a craft.
Well, maybe it was. It was. It's not now.
Now it's a universal game. Now they have guys that they look up to. Now you have the Luka Doncic's of the world. Mm-hmm. You have guys like Vlade Divac. Andrea Bagnani. You have a number of these European players who've made a mark, and now that mindset has changed. But the worst thing, to come back and answer your question, was, Rick, sitting back and seeing a European player and he's jumping over a guy who's like 6'5" who can't jump over a phone book, and you're losing your marbles, dude.
Is there somebody in particular in this draft that you are really interested to see where he goes and what he's about? Because you want to separate the hype from... It's not as if you think he's overhyped. It's a matter of, I don't know how good this guy is. He could be good, but he might not be good. Is there somebody in particular that you are curious about on that level?
Honestly, the top guys right now.
Even Zion and Ja.
I kind of know what Ja Morant is. I like his skill set. It's just a matter of him developing. He's gonna turn it around. There's a lot of question marks on Zion Williamson just because you don't know who he is. Yeah. You don't know what he's gonna be. And I tell you one thing: he's not the next LeBron James. Now he's a different animal. He's a different beast. But the expectations are gonna be LeBron. Mm-hmm. He ain't coming out on the circuit like LeBron. He ain't coming, going to blast Sacramento for 30 points in his first game. He doesn't have those tools, but he works hard as heck. He works at his game. He's going to be a different type of project. But I love his work ethic. And people aren't looking at Zion for his work ethic. A lot of common fans are going to just expect him to be flying through the lane and just dunking all over everybody. Guys.
Yeah.
And you pair him with some good point guards, you get some spacing around him, and he's going to have some highlights, but it's not LeBron. And also RJ Barrett. When I look at RJ, he struggled from the outside. Mm-hmm. And everybody's 6'5", 6'6". Everybody's long. Everybody's athletic. And you saw even guys like Lonzo really struggle to run offense because they weren't a threat from the perimeter. So you tell me how RJ Barrett's going to run pick and roll in the NBA when I can go under every screen if he doesn't have NBA range off the bounce.
Yeah.
I really question that. Now, I'm not saying the kid can't shoot, won't be able to shoot, but if you're not a dead eye from that range, man, there are going to be some problems. And that's why you even see teams like New York stepping up and saying, hey, we're kind of willing to trade this pick. And if I look at the draft, Rick, and I want to know how you feel about this, I think the gems are going to be in the later rounds. I think there's going to be guys that you can get the same talent, the same match, or the same level of production in a later round. And, I think Zion's a go-to, Ja's a go-to. And after that, I don't really see, just to the naked eye, Rick.
Yeah.
I don't see standouts. What about you?
Yeah, no, there's going to be some guys that are going to end up standing out, but I look at the bulk of this draft as being ideally quality role players. Guys that are going to be in your 7-8 man rotation, but nobody that you're necessarily building around. But there's going to be a couple of guys in that mix.
Including Zion?
I'm going to put Zion a little bit above that. I think Zion can be a star. John Morant's simply a matter of I think he's 175 pounds. You don't have to have the same physique as you once did, but I need to see, physically, is he going to be okay? I'm not worried about his skill set, his speed, anything else. It's simply that physically, how is he going to manage the league? And we saw De'Aaron Fox. He managed it fine, so I would expect that's not going to be a problem. That's my one question. The guy that I really want to see, and I'll be interested to see him in Summer League, I assume I'll see him in Summer League, is Darius Garland, just because we've seen so little of him. And yet he could be the number 4 pick. There could be somebody jumping up because New Orleans is, from everything I'm hearing, is making that pick available. And so a guy who played, 6 games last year. I know Kyrie Irving had limited collegiate career and he did okay, but for a draft like this, that seems to me like a dicey proposition. Maybe it's not. Maybe they've seen enough in AAU and elsewhere that the scouting is good, but that's one guy that I'm most curious about in seeing. And there's other, Cam Reddish. I worry about the guys that you question their motor. Like that, especially a guy who knows he's going to the draft. If you're questioning his motor, if I'm a GM, I don't know that I can go there. Because if it doesn't work out, it's like I told you so.
Well, you're going to see that, become a lot more common with these kids and even these American-born guys. Rick, a lot of these players, they're not coming from the hood. And when I throw that out, it's a good and it's a bad thing in the sense of, dude, when I grew up starving, or you played on the playgrounds, or you got your game from the streets, you played with grown men, your motor's going to be there. Like, it means something different every time you get on the court. And a lot of these kids have been playing AAU. They have trainers from day one. They've got 1 million followers. They're already internet sensations before they even get on the court, bro. And I would take this time to credit Zion Williamson because he works his tail off. He's got a very level head. He's a hard worker. And this dude, his head could be as big as a beach ball right now.
That is very true.
And it's not. But there's a lot of these guys that just feel like they're God's gift to basketball. And they are delusional, brother. They are delusional.
As a veteran player in the NBA, how many guys do you look at each year when the draft comes around? Because you're adding 60 more guys to the pot. How many of those guys do you generally look at and say, that guy's going to take somebody's spot? Like, what's the math on that?
It all changed. Before, you knew certain guys would get cut. They weren't going to make it. There'd be no threat. Like, a rookie had to take your job. It's like it's a rookie, bro. He doesn't know any different, and there was not a fair shot. In 2019, 2020, whatever you want to label it, whether they deserve it or not, they're taking these veterans' jobs.
And why do you think that is?
Analytically, it's cheaper. Analytically, you get more bang for your buck to see these young guys. And if you're not a piece of a core or an older player that's a rotation player, these teams are blowing it up.
Yeah.
Now, what I hope and that I'm praying is that the commissioner changing the mindset of the draft lottery and saying all of you guys have an equal shot at the number 1 pick. I'm going to penalize you, New York Knicks. I'm going to penalize you, all you tanking teams, to where it's better for you to just be the Grizzlies and play out the season and compete. And if you don't learn something from the Clippers, if you don't learn something from Brooklyn, that you add veterans alongside your young players, and your young players learn to be pros. You get more out of them. So I hope that mindset is changing. Because, Rick, I'll be honest, man. I was always under the mindset, watching the Derek Martins of the world and the Tracy Murrays and the Mitchell Butlers. These guys grew up mentoring me, that I was going to cruise into 15 to 17 years in the NBA by being a good guy, staying in shape, and doing the little things. And instead of my mindset, and you can blame me for this because I'm going to be accountable, saying pedal to the metal, it was that's how you were going to succeed, and things changed right in front of my eyes.
I wonder, at what point did you realize, because I don't know how many guys really grasp this, and there's some guys, even now, like Jordan Bell is the first guy that comes to mind, and there's been others, that they don't seem cognizant of how thin the line is for them between being in the league and being out of the league. And how many years was it before you recognized there's 60 more guys coming in every year? And I know you said it changed in terms of that they're allotted, but I wonder how cognizant you were that the job pool or the candidate pool for a finite number of jobs was being expanded by 60 guys every single year. Did it take you a year? Did it take you the first time? We're like, oh wow, there's a lot of competition to keep my spot. Or did you have it right away? When did you grasp that?
Right away, I was pedal to the metal, balls to the walls. Excuse my language right there, Rick. But I knew I had to do everything that I could do to stay in the league, and I had a chip on my shoulder to go prove myself. And I knew I was, I wasn't trying to stay in the pack. I was out working you, bro. Like nobody was working like me. And the first time that I felt myself like, dang, I think I'm going to be out the NBA. I don't have that comfort level, that comfort zone. It was when I was in Cleveland and I was traded there and I was headed to Boston, and Cleveland was playing games, man. Chris Grant said he didn't know what the heck he was doing. And Chris Grant is playing all kind of mind games. I like Samir Dan more than you, and watch out. He was trying to do his own, make his mark as a GM. Chris didn't know what he's doing. He's going about things wrong. He drafted Anthony Bennett. And shout out Anthony Bennett, but he's not a number one pick, and that was a big shadow to cast. Nonetheless, Celtics wanted to trade for me, as we talked about. Chris Grant wouldn't make the trade. He's telling people and my agent at the time, nobody's interested in me. Well, a lot of teams in the league were interested. They just didn't want to make the move because they didn't want to look stupid for me to go on the team and play well. Trade deadline passes, I'm not moved. I had to go to Chris Grant with my agent and said, waive me. Let me out the contract. And they didn't think I was going to ask to be waived out of $2.3 million. I said, dude, waive me. Let me go. So I get out the contract, and, I think it's called the moratorium or whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. You can't be signed to another team the next day. You've got to wait a week or however many days. But I knew I was going to Boston. And in between that time, mentally, I was like, yo, the NBA is going on right now, and I'm out the league. And I know I'm going to Boston, but this is a scary place.
No doubt.
I'm not comfortable with this. I saw my name fly across the ticker as waived. And it was just a really freaky place to be in. And Rick, when I tell you I was in the basement of my Cleveland home doing air squats, push-ups on the elliptical, defensive slides. I was getting it in, bro. But I had never felt that before. It was time to turn up. It was time to go prove myself.
I'm so glad you bring that up, because I always think about that when I get, back when we had newspapers and you would see the transactions and you'd see names of guys that were waived or released, and then now it's emails, I get where teams are waiving guys, and it's usually it's rarely names that you're highly familiar with, but nonetheless, I always look at that and I think somebody's basketball dream just possibly ended or has taken a turn that they're not going to recover from. They might go and play overseas. They might They might still play pro, but the NBA dream is not likely to continue after they're waived. It's the exception, not the rule, that they do that. And I've always wanted to do a story where I go and I hang with a guy with that first 48 hours after that's happened. And no one has ever, like, I don't know that guys want to be seen in that vulnerable place. And I understand it, but I've always wanted to capture that because I think people take it for granted. I don't think they realize that little, 3-sentence press release by the team of a guy who's not necessarily a star and probably didn't make a ton of money is like, that is a monumental event in their lives.
Let me ask this: Would you rather get a young guy, a guy around his prime, or an older guy?
Well, if it's an older guy who's already been in the league for a while, then I feel as if, okay, you can kind of read the tea leaves. It shouldn't come as a big surprise. I think for me, it's the young guy. I think it's the young guy who's maybe he's been a star, or especially if he was drafted fairly high and he had expectations. Was it Joe Alexander, who was a lottery pick with the Milwaukee Bucks?
Yep.
And like suddenly, and it's changed now. If you got drafted, if you're a first round pick and you got sent to what was then the D-League, I was like, now it's routine. Now they're signing guys to 2-way contracts. Now that it's different because it's becoming a legitimate minor league, and they're sending guys down just to get in shape or to get tuned up, and then they're bringing them back.
It was the kiss of death before, bro.
Oh yeah,
it was the kiss of death.
Yeah, no doubt.
I tell you real quick. When I went down,
yeah,
it was like, yo.
So paint the picture. Like, what was the situation when you went down?
One of the worst experiences of my life.
Were you with Charlotte?
Yeah, one of the worst experiences of my life. It was no. This ain't cool. You went from the penthouse to the outhouse.
What was their
Put it like this. Team? Put it like this, and I'll sum it up. Kid you not, true story. After the games, the fans feel like you should be asking for their autograph. Like you should be kissing their butt to get there.
So where was their team? Was it Greensboro or?
No, we were the Fort Worth Flyers, Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh,
the team
okay.
Folded by now, but it was us, Philly, and another affiliate that was there. I almost want to say Toronto, but I don't think it was Toronto.
Okay. So what was the rude awakening when you got there? The accommodations or the court or the uniforms? What was the thing that stood out to you that was so different from the NBA life?
Well, there was no weight room.
Okay.
My clothes were mildewed every day.
Your uniform or your clothes?
There was no trainer. My uniform. I knew how to wash my clothes. I had that in my mind.
Okay.
And Sidney Moncrief was the coach, and everybody was trying to get out of there. And the one thing about Sidney Moncrief is he's got this old school mentality. We had these ball buster 5-hour run your knees off, fresh into practice. You need to go 1,000% practices.
Really?
And dude, it was me, and you'd like this squad. Me, Lou Williams,
okay,
Bobby Jones,
wow,
and Pops Mensah-Bonsu came when I left, and JJ Barea.
Wow.
And we had a squad.
That is a squad. That's a hell of a D-League squad. This is what I was always curious about, is especially at that time. Again, it's a little bit different now, but it was so cutthroat and guys were so desperate to get out of there. How could you play as a team? Like how did you develop any chemistry?
Oh, and your boy was on the team. Didn't get drafted. Kalena Azubuike.
Is that right?
It's the worst play. It was the worst thing in the world. You're in a place that nobody wants to be. You're somewhere that everyone's trying to get out of. No, you're absolutely right. It was the worst thing ever.
So how do you get around that? How do you play?
Oh, man. I mean, it sucked. And then what happened was Moncrief wants to keep me on the team. So I'm starting.
Yeah.
And then, the first game I had darn near triple-double, flirted with a triple-double, 8 blocks, 14 points or 20-something points, like 15 rebounds. It was crazy. It was like I shouldn't be here. I was steaming, bro. It was like, yo, wake the heck up. Rick, I was always a guy that played hard and was like, nah, bro, you're going to put on a show right now. And Sidney saw what was going on. This is the type of dude he was then. And he starts pulling me out the game. Then he starts like yelling at me over like, well, you didn't deny the post or you didn't do something. And he's just finding reasons for me to not play with him.
Keep you revved up?
No, so that I wouldn't get called up.
Oh.
And I get called up. And Sidney would do this weirdo thing, bro. And Sidney Moncrief, he's a legend, but I just didn't vibe with him as a coach.
Yeah.
Sidney would walk up to you, and you'd be like walking through the elevators or, you get into a hotel.
Yeah.
And he'd be looking at you, but he wouldn't say anything. And then, he just wouldn't say anything. And he'd be like, is there something wrong? And then, I don't know. And then, he just keep looking at you like, well, what are you looking at? He was like, dude, you're staring at me. I don't know. I know there's a movie scene like this, but it was the weirdest dude. Sidney was nuts, bro. He was absolutely nuts. Oh, Kevin Burleson was on the team too, and he was in Charlotte the year before with me. So we had a pretty stacked team, and he was doing everything in his power to keep me down there.
He should have been D-League champions.
And dude, we meet together as a team. Sean May gets hurt, and then I remember they called me back up to come back up.
Uh-huh.
And I'm on my agent. I'm talking to him every day, bro. You got to get me out of here. He's cussing out Bernie Bickerstaff. Bernie's cussing him out. They're going at it. They're trying to do everything to get me out because this is no weight room. I'm 205 pounds, bro. There's no weight room. Sidney, I get called up, my dude. And Sidney Moncrief, I swear to God, he goes, I don't know why they're calling you up.
Oh, man.
I don't know why they're calling you up. I've never in my life. He's like, guys, I got some news. Ryan, you're going back. It was one of the worst.
So he announced it to the team.
To the team, he had to. He's like, come here, I got some news. And then, dude, I don't know. He didn't say out loud. I don't know if everybody heard that. But when I tell you, when I got back, Rick, it was probably the best thing for my NBA career. I was diving after loose balls. I was sprinting. I was like, if you thought I already played hard, it was like my eyes were like fresh out the pen, bro. Like NBA jail. Like I'm not going back.
Speaking of old school, you're playing for the Aliens in the Big Three, right?
Yep.
I had Jason Maxiell on our last podcast.
Great dude, bro.
He is a great dude. He is a great dude. He would not talk about, and I don't know, I was dying to talk to him about this, and I get the sense that it was a mistake. He went on the Oprah Winfrey Network, right? And he talked. Max went on with his wife and talked about how he slept with 341 women. It was like an intervention.
Jason Maxiell?
Yes, a year ago. He
went on Oprah and said he slept with 300.
It's the Oprah Winfrey Network. Ilyana Van Zant, I think, is the name of the host.
And Maxiell said this on TV?
Maxiell said this, and I was dying to know, everything. Why he did it. Is he happy that he did it? I'm guessing his wife, I guess, is a reality TV star. His wife kind of dragged him into it, and maybe she was going to divorce him if he didn't do it or whatever. I feel like he got
Max is I love this dude. This is a great guy.
I like him. I from what I knew about him I didn't cover him firsthand, but I covered him in the league. He always seemed like a good dude, and he didn't want to talk about it, so we didn't broach it. But
I can't believe it. That's my dude. Yeah, golly, great guy.
Yeah,
great.
No, I know, and I'm happy to see that he's playing in the Big Three again. But you are being coached by Tiny Archibald, who will always have a soft spot in my heart I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for him because he played for the Cincinnati Royals once upon a time, and I grew up in Cincinnati. So that was just before he went on to his claim to fame elsewhere, particularly with Boston. In any event, you're also playing with Greg Oden, and I'm fascinated by where Greg is. Obviously, had the injuries, had drinking problems, coming around on the other side. Give me the lowdown on Oden and where he's at.
I don't know. I haven't seen him. I've seen some viral clips, but
you guys are teammates though, right?
You think we had this practice or training camp?
You haven't had anything?
No,
dude. You guys are behind the. I mean, Jason told me they went to guys' different cities and they got together and played. They kind of had a training camp. You guys haven't had anything like that?
No, you train on your own. That's a choice that they had.
I'm not betting on the aliens this season. That's
they had. Now, I don't know what Greg look at, but I know from playing against Greg, he was the one guy. And I've always, there's kind of like when you're a dunker or a big man, there's this alpha mentality. Okay, you can't get a dunk. I'm gonna own you. I'm gonna whatever. Mm-hmm. Regardless, I remember playing Portland. I was in the game, and Brandon Roy threw it back to him. He went up and dunked the basketball. And it was one of the only times I looked up and I saw somebody that big, that explosive, that with that much fast twitch, rip the rim off. And I was like, yo, I couldn't do nothing with that. Even if I was in I couldn't. And my thing was even, I'm so athletic, I was above average, one of the freak athletes for a big,
sure.
That's what I do. I could be late and go contest a shot, go block it. Kind of hey, I could guard a large radius around the rim. It's bro, I couldn't. There was nothing I'm doing with that. Ain't nothing I'm doing with that.
Very interesting. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to some reports on playing. I know Brandon Rushwell. When you play, tell him I said hello. He was got to know him when he was with the Warriors. Shannon Brown when he was with the Lakers. And so you have a bunch of intriguing guys on your team, but I'll be interested to see how well you guys do since you've never actually practiced together. Yeah. All right. That actually does it for this episode of Bucher and Holland, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. Please rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes or wherever. Rate the show. Just hit the stars. Leave us a comment if you like. Don't leave us a comment if you like. But then screenshot the review, the stars, and send it to @BucherFriends, and you will be eligible to win some prizes. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening.